So going along the argument about whether you earn grace or it's like a free gift that's given, Protestants often argue that grace is something that God gives naturally, that we don't have to work for, that is just, yeah, like a free gift, which Catholics believe as well. But the fact of the matter is that grace produces benefits. It's not just like, okay, like, I have grace now, like, thanks God, I'm in heaven. No, grace is something that we physically receive now that is a free gift, that in turn we're able to actually produce things of character that actually modifies our behavior in our existence. I mean, the actual definition of grace is refinement of movement, and the definition of mercy is unmerited favor. So we've actually taken this whole concept of mercy, which is unmerited favor, and then now in the Christian belief, grace is also viewed as this unmerited favor that is what gets us into heaven. However, Paul talks about, you read Romans 6, he talks about how grace is what helps us to become that newness of life, how Christ died on the cross and rose again. And now we have this newness of life that we're actually able to take the grace now. And mercy is what God has on us when that grace isn't allowed to fully manifest itself. So yes, we're saved by grace through faith to go to heaven. But just as St. Irenaeus says here, no one indeed, while placed out of reach of the Lord's benefits, has power to procure for himself the means of salvation. So the more we receive his grace, the more we should love him. This would be to say that we actually can receive God's grace now while we're on earth and actually change how we act, and therefore our actions are that proof of us following God's will and walking in that newness of life that he has given us.
The Bible I have here actually goes into detail about what Paul is talking about in chapter 6 here. Paul addresses potential misunderstanding, how we can't just let sin run loose due to the fact that we now have grace, and that we actually need to continue to live and continue to try to do the best that we can, and not just say, oh, Jesus will save me, I can do whatever I want.
Even here in the Catechism, it talks about sanctifying grace as a habitual act, as something that is actually a permanent disposition to live and act in keeping with God's call, which is distinguished from the actual graces, which are actually God's interventions, which begin that work of sanctification that we have to go through in order to get it to heaven. So these graces are active today while we're still alive. So there you have it. Even in the paragraphs 153, 154, and 155, they talk about how faith is actually a grace in and of itself, and how it's beyond how we're saved, it's into how we actually act today in our day-to-day life, and it needs to impact our lives and allow God to work through us so that our actions speak for what it is that we actually do believe in. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a great Sunday.